Junior golf is a long process. You're talking from like my son, age 9 to age 18 before it's realized. And then, oh, by the way, he's going to go to college. And so I think I always am saying, like, be patient. Be patient with the process, but you need to develop a very clear and concise process of how you do things, the type of tournament you schedule, your coach. Like, develop those processes more than like focusing on the results, and be patient with the results. Like, and believe in the things you're doing. Being blown by the wind and changing coaches and changing clubs and blaming the wrong things is where people mainly go wrong.
Welcome to the Golf Parent, where you get access to the best minds in junior golf. Today, my guest is Andrew Lewis. Andrew has a wealth of experience in player development and shares incredible insights on what it really takes to guide young golfers toward success. From the importance of tournament experience and caddying to the changing landscape of college golf recruitment. We also get into NIL opportunities and how to take advantage of them. This conversation is packed with value for every golf parent. But before we dive in, I want to give a big shout out to today's sponsor, IJGA, the International Junior Golf Academy. At IJGA, junior golfers don't just get elite coaching, they train on their very own private golf course. It's also the oldest and most prestigious golf boarding school in all of North America, with a tradition of excellence that continues to this day. And here's the stat that every golf parent wants to hear. IJGA boasts an incredible 99% college placement rate. So when it comes to helping junior golfers play at the next level, they really are the experts. If you want your child to have the best chance and a future in college golf, IJGA is a place to start. And now, let's get into the episode with Andrew Lewis.
Andrew, how are you?
Hey, Ryan, what's up? Thanks for having me on, man. I'm doing well. It is, we're down in Texas. It's getting hot. So yeah, good to be inside for an hour.
Yep. I'm up north. I'm in Canada right now, and it's hot here too. So I can only imagine in Texas. Where in Texas are you right now?
Dallas. Yeah, I live in Dallas proper and coach pretty much in Dallas.
Okay, so my wife and I, so we've got a very young son. He's 3, and we're in the process of moving, and we've actually narrowed down the 2 spots to Frisco, Texas, or Dubai.
Oh, wow.
Couldn't get any more different of where we're looking to go to. But are you in and around kind of like the Frisco area and like the PGA of America's kind of facility out there?
Yeah, we're probably 25 miles, 20 miles south of there. Spent a lot of time
Okay.
there. I have a tournament at PGA Frisco at the end of the month. Yeah, Frisco's blowing up. I mean, everybody's moving there. The Cowboys have their training facility there. Universal Studios is going there. Everyone is moving there. It's a great place. I've also been to Dubai. It's been a while, but Dubai is pretty cool. I don't know how to make the choice. Either way, you're going to be hot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. You're going to be
Golf
spending your
wise, you
summers
definitely,
elsewhere.
North Texas is a golf mecca, and that's hence why the PGA of America would move
So
there.
talk to me about that then. So yeah, I mean, it was always California, Florida, and now Texas is it the new spot? Is it like where do you see in the next 20 years? Where's the future of American golf going to be from the junior level and developmental level?
It's always going to be Texas, Florida, California because of the weather and the amount of people that play. As far as like the PGA of America, yeah, I mean they have moved the headquarters. There's going to be major championships. There's the women's KPMG coming up, I think this week at PGA Frisco. They have a slew of events, PGA championships, Ryder Cups, things like that. So, yeah, definitely North. I would say, I know I'm biased. I think North Texas is the most competitive market for junior golf in the country. The tours, there's tons and tons of options. At any given moment, you have 200 or 300 people playing a tournament in one day, all over that's just in North Texas. If you throw in Houston, San Antonio, Austin, I mean, you've got 1,000 kids a day playing tournaments. So yeah, anywhere with good weather though. Florida obviously would have a lot to say about that.
Okay, so for those that are listening or watching right now, tell us a little bit about your background because you specialize right now in really developing elite like level juniors. Like that's your bread and butter. That's what you're focused on right now. And you even coach your own son and that's going to be interesting to kind of get into later down in the conversation. But what was your journey to getting to where you're at right now?
Yeah, so I didn't grow up playing competitive golf. I played a little bit recreationally. I actually lived overseas, where there really wasn't a whole lot of golf. I played baseball, and my baseball career came to an end because I hurt my shoulder, and I decided I really wanted to try to play golf. In college, I did not play junior golf, and I walked on to a Division III team just basically through persistence. I mean, I literally had nothing to give. And I started taking lessons, and I just really, I always knew I was going to do something in sports. And then I figured that the best way for me to do that was to go into golf. So I quickly got a job while I was in college at a golf course. And I just knew that if I was going to stay in that, I really didn't like the golf course side very much. But I loved coaching. So I started coaching very, very quickly, like as I got into golf, just doing like little developmental stuff with juniors. And so, my career's had some really nice opportunity, like out of nowhere. Like I got some really good jobs. But the real turning point for me was I got to work with Cameron McCormick, who coaches Jordan Spieth, for about 10 years. And so I really got to see what development looks like with players of that caliber and down. I mean, at that time, we were seeing the best players in the state consistently. So I really got to see how you develop skills across the board and what really like separates the best players from, pretty good juniors. And for the last 3 years, I've been out on my own, and my clientele really has kind of played really well in that period to where I'm coaching a lot of the best players in the country, which is great, and a lot of them are signing with good colleges. And so I didn't mean to turn into like this junior golf person. Part of having a child that's a junior golfer helps that. But yeah, I mean, it seems like I'm seeing 90% of the people I see are just competitive players wanting to get better. That 9 to 16, 17 age.
So let's get right to the $1 million question. What does separate the best of the best in junior golf from the rest of the field?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's skills, right? There are very identifiable skills that people have to have. Those things would be, driving skills. How far you hit it, how accurate are you? Approach play, distance wedges, short game putting, bunkers, green reading. I think a lot of people think that that's like, oh, it's obvious, but it's really not that obvious. Most of the time, when people take lessons, they just sit on the driving range hitting golf balls. They don't really develop those other things. So there has to be a baseline of skill in each one of those categories, and a plan of development to make those not necessarily like world class in every way. Like you're not going to be great at all of them, but you have to have these level of benchmarks, or you're just not going to necessarily improve. So yeah, that's basically it. And then having a lot of tournament experience. I mean, you need to start playing tournaments at a fairly early age these days. You're seeing kids start really early and have success. So there's kind of like that side of having success competitively, but then also like taking these, having lessons and having a plan of development so that you don't feel like you're like stagnating in your progress.
So, okay, there's a lot to unpack there, and there's some contentious topics in there. So the first one is, how much tournament golf should a kid play and how early? Because we are seeing them playing earlier and earlier. Those high level best of the best juniors that you're working with right now, like the top in the country,
Yeah.
did they start playing pretty early? Is there a pattern of development that you've recognized in working with them where you're like, oh, interesting?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at other sports, right? Like if you want to go play baseball, you sign up for T-ball, and then when next week you're playing a game. Most kids are playing and sampling sports competitively at age like 4, 5, 6. So yeah, I 100% think kids should be playing some type of tournament, and that doesn't have to look like some very formal tournament. I mean, there are programs like PJ Junior League. There's Operation 36 where they're doing very basic type tournaments. Most local clubs have junior tournaments just for the kids that are members. But I think by the time you're age 8 or 9, you probably should be starting to dabble in 9 or 18 hole tournaments, because there's really no replacement for competitive reps. My son's probably played almost 400 tournament rounds as a 16-year-old, and that is invaluable. I really am happy that he's had that experience. That doesn't mean he's going to be good or that he's going to play well all the time, but his process of how to go about doing practice rounds and going from different courses. We just got back from an out-of-state tournament, just doing things like that is really, really helpful. We've been traveling since he was probably 12. How many tournaments someone should play? I would argue that the older you get, the less you're going to play. You want to be a little bit more selective. But in the beginning, it's fine to do, one a week or one every other week. I mean, obviously that can be kind of expensive, so you don't have to do that, but you're not going to really burn out, I don't think, just from playing a lot of golf. I think that's a misunderstood thing that playing a lot burns you out. That's not what burns out a child. People love to compete. That's all you hear when you like listen to these PJ Tour guys. I just love to compete out there. So these kids love to compete. So give them that opportunity. As they get into high school, I would say having, most of the time you're playing a multi-day event. Playing that 12 to 18 events a year is probably good. If you look on Junior Golf Scoreboard, that's the ranking system nationally that most people will look at coaches and juniors. Some kids are playing 8 to 10 events, up to probably 20, 25. I'd say 20 to 25 is a lot, but yeah, one a month, one every 3 weeks.
Okay. So high school level, you're tapering it down. When you're younger, play as much as possible, foster that competitive spirit and that nature in the kids without making it too crazy. And you're saying that there's not that danger of burning the kid out by playing too much tournament golf. Or at least that's not what you've seen. Where is the danger in burning out your kid? Because that is a concern for most golf parents out there, is that they're going to play too much too early and then just burn out.
Yeah, I see it in two ways. One is they play a lot of tournaments but don't really see a lot of improvement. It's very, very frustrating for a junior to play a lot and just constantly lose, to not see their scores going down. So in that respect, like if that's the case, you need to prioritize like a plan of improvement, like taking some lessons, finding someone in your area that has a track record of developing juniors and send them there. And then two is the parenting in a way that it creates a lot of stress for the player based on their performance. That's probably the number one. I don't necessarily see that often, but with the kids that I do see that kind of fall off by high school, it's not that they stop playing, but their love of the game, and how much they desire to go do it just definitely just gets crushed. Partly because they don't see them panning out as good as they thought they were going to be, but then also if they have a parent or two that is just going too hard at them based on like how they're playing, and it's almost like there's nothing you can do. This is going to be like a tough conversation after every round. So that it's not, I really don't see the burnout coming because they're doing it. I mean, I have kids that go to the golf course all day, every day and play with their buddies. They can't wait to wake up and go back to the golf course. And oh, by the way, so is like every 45-year-old guy listening on the podcast. All they want to do is go play golf all weekend. So I don't think burnout comes from like an overuse of doing it. Competitive golf, though, is different. Like if you are playing a lot of tournaments as you get older and there is a lot of stress, then yeah, I mean, you need to make sure that you have time to kind of chill. But as like a 10-year-old, if you're playing local stuff, I mean, those kids eat that up.
So you're one of the most unique guests that we've had on because, Andrew, you are a coach, but you're also a golf parent as well. And you've been developing your son's, I guess, career and development through junior golf. What did you do? Like looking back now, I think you said your son was 16. Is that correct? So he's right at that window that he's about to be, going for scholarships. What did you do looking back where you're like, okay, cool. I really was intentional. This was my plan and it worked. And where do you see being like, okay, you know what? I wish knowing what I know now, 16 years ago, I wish I would have done this.
Yeah, so Cameron wasn't exactly like the earliest golfer. He started competing at age 9, which I mean, I think that's early, but it's not like 5. I think what we did a good job of was always prioritizing, having conversations of improvement, which honestly a lot of them were led by him. It's tough being coached by your dad. So I always had the mindset of like, I'm going to kind of let him come to me when he needs help, even when he was fairly little. So like, for example, he would play a tournament when he was 9 and he would shoot a 45 and, be 6 over and just from bunkers. And so we'd have a conversation, over dinner, like, hey, what do you want to work on tomorrow? And he'll go, I think we should go do bunkers. Okay, let's go do bunkers. So just constant conversations like that. And then like I said earlier, like always prioritizing every single skill. So, doing full swing stuff, doing stuff on TrackMan, checking his clubs. He's kind of a smaller kid, always has been. So he had to really maximize his yardage. I was always like paying attention to that. Green reading, putting form, developing a good short game, like all of those things we just focused on. And then let the kind of you could also argue that's like just developing processes from a very early age to where at this point now, I mean, if you had him on, he would say, my dad doesn't have to help me that much anymore. Um, we still have that same relationship where he kind of asks me if he wants help. And it's a lot of it's through like video too. He like sends me a text like, "Hey, can you check out this swing for me?" I do watch him a lot, so it's a lot of conversations around strategy now. I mean, his swing and his skills are pretty set in stone for the most part. We don't try to change that. If I could go back, I don't know what I would do different. I'm pretty happy with his development. I think I would be more patient. I think that it's easy at the time to think things are a big deal. And looking back, I can't remember his rounds from when he was 10. And I can guarantee you I got frustrated many times watching him play golf when he was 10. And now I can't even remember what he shot, or can I remember anything about it. So I wish I would have held more loosely, like, if he shot an 85 and I was like, oh man, I can't believe you had such a bad day. Um, it had no effect on his like mental psyche at all, like having like bad days 6 years ago or something like that. So yeah, I think try to enjoy it as much as you can. I know that can be hard for parents watching, but it really does go by fast. And I'm trying to have that mindset now. We were just in Tucson for an AJ. It went pretty well, but the whole time I'm just trying to be like, man, this is really cool. I get to watch this kid play this event with kids he doesn't know, and he's handling himself well. There were college coaches there watching. Like, it's like, this is why we do this, right? This is what we wanted. So yeah, it's a cool story that's unfolding with him.
How hard is it to not coach from the sidelines, to not yell out a swing thought or a little correction when you see it, assuming you weren't caddying for him?
Yeah, don't get me started on junior golf and how we can't caddy, but not that hard. It's more the strategy. I can see. I think I have the superpower of seeing what's about to happen before it happens, whether it's missing a putt low or a shot's going to end up in a certain spot. Um, but no, for the most part, it's more. Um, yeah, it's just more the strategy. It's not necessarily like, hey, you should have done this with your swing or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it's much harder. I just saw a video of Chris DeMarco talking about how he's watching his son. They just played it, I think, the RBC, and he was saying it's so much harder to watch than to play, and it really is. And I've watched hundreds of rounds, and it never gets easier, especially as the rounds kind of start to mean more to both of us, with the college stuff. Um, but for the most part, yeah, I mean, I trust him. He's about to play a couple events this week where he has a caddy. I'm not caddying, and I think that's a huge, huge advantage when these kids can have a caddy.
Because not every kid is going to take advantage of that or is able to take advantage, or not every tournament that they allow that. Well,
Yeah, the
talk to me about
tournament.
the caddying.
Yeah, the tournaments. Most tours will not allow a junior, to have a caddy. The reasoning can be different across the board, but then there are some tournaments, which again, there's no necessarily rhyme or reason. They're allowed to have a caddy. In most junior events, you're not allowed. If you do have a caddy, you're not allowed to be the parent. I'm sure that's just been ruined by certain parents, losing it on their kid or something, just having like a very emotional time out there. But you think about college and you think about pro golf. These guys have help, and they're much, much better than juniors. And so, if all these guys at the U.S. Open this week didn't have a caddy, like how much would that affect them? It definitely would, even if it's someone just to like talk through the shot or talk through the bad start or talk through the good start. So having these kids have to get out there all by themselves. That's probably my most frustrating thing about junior golf is like, I wish that there were more opportunities to caddy, almost like playing lessons, right? I mean, who doesn't want to have a playing lesson? It's a live playing lesson, and doing the feedback after the round is great if it's done in the right way. But it'd be much better to do that like live during the tournament if you could. So I've been trying to find things like that for him because I think it's super helpful.
So we are talking, Andrew, off air that literally this weekend, I think it's open now to your son being able to be approached or approaching junior golf coaches. For those listeners right now that maybe their kids are a little bit younger or they're like maybe a year or so away from this, what is that process like? Like, at what age can they reach out? Are you reaching out? Let's just talk about it from a general golf parent's point of view of what now this next step is to get into collegiate golf.
Yeah, so the recruiting window for everybody, boys and girls, starts June 15th of your sophomore junior summer. So going into your junior year, that is when colleges can communicate with you. Now, at any point in time before that, you are totally allowed to reach out to coaches, follow them on Instagram, message them. If you get their phone number and want to send them a text, that is all fine and good. And I encourage most people to do that to a degree, because it shows interest. Now, don't be offended. They're not going to be able to respond to you. It could be an NCAA recruiting violation. But then come June 15th, if they have interest, they're going to reach out to you. Most kids don't get a lot of interest on that day. You're talking about, from the rankings perspective, the top 100 kids in the country are the ones that are going to get a lot of interest. So if playing college golf is something that you want to do, you definitely have to develop a plan of attack. And I would say the better that you are, the less you have to do. Obviously, you're going to get more, interest if you're really good. And then not the worse you are, but the lower or the higher ranked you are, the worse ranked you are, you're probably going to have to do a little bit more work to find a school because, as I always say, how does XYZ school know who you are? They're not going to know who you are unless you reach out to them. In that realm, I think using social media is a really, really good idea. I think most kids you probably see have Instagram accounts. Posting your highlights, following coaches, following programs is really, really helpful. Just for like a very, basic start to the process.
So, okay, let's assume that you're not in that top 100 because like you said, if you're in that top 100, things are going to come very easily to you. People are going to be approaching you. So
Yes.
that notch down now, you're reaching out to a bunch of coaches, you're basically showing your highlight reel, you're showing some of your top scores. What advice would you give in what those messages should be like? Are they full kind of personal emails? Are they saying, "Hey, listen, this is why I'd really like to come to the school"? Like, what advice would you give on actually crafting that initial reach out?
Yeah, the initial reach out is going to be, yeah, like everything you just said. Obviously, it's going to have your contact info. The main goal is to get them on the phone, to get off of email, and to start actually having a relationship where you guys can text or have a phone call. And then trying to get some type of in person meeting, whether that's you going to visit officially or unofficially, or getting them to come watch you play. I think a lot of people stick in the email realm, and it's just with people, right? Like with my closest friends and the people I know, I don't send emails, right? That's much more professional. So I think the more that you can create like a relationship with who these coaches are, that's going to go a long way. Because at the end of the day, these coaches are having to pick. Let's say you're the 200th ranked, 300th ranked kid in your class, which isn't like a great spot to be. They're not going to be looking at, well, he's 251 and you're 255. Well, that's not that big of a difference. They're going to be looking for like, does this kid work hard? Is he someone I'd want to spend time with? I'm going to have to recruit this or spend 4 years with this kid. Does it seem like he'd be a good fit on the team? Does he try hard? Those are the kind of things that go a long way. If everyone starts to kind of look the same, if you're going to like a lower Division 1 or Division 2 school. So yeah, getting that initial contact is great, but the hard part is developing it into a functioning, working conversation and relationship.
And how have the rules recently changed? We're talking off air about just like the roster sizes changing. What else has happened over the last couple of years that maybe the average golf parent isn't aware of?
Yeah, so there's been this thing in the court system for a couple years now. It's been a lot of rumors about the size of teams going down, and it is official as of a couple days ago. So before this year, it was really the Wild West. You could have as many people on your team as you want. You only had for boys 4.5 scholarships. So you could have 15 people on your team, but only 4.5 scholarships to give out. Now, where were they making up the bridge between that and the 15th guy? Like, how is he getting money? Well, that's where NIL came in. And so basically these universities could say, hey, we can't give you a scholarship, but we'll make it up in NIL money from boosters or this or that. So the new rules are that the size of the teams is going to be capped at 9. There's even some rumors that some of the conferences may even cap it at 8. So what that means is there is just less opportunity at Division 1 programs for spots, and so it's going to be much more competitive. What's going to happen is the transfer portal will be even more important for these coaches. They'll go to it often. Schools will be very quick to cut players that aren't performing because they don't have a big enough team They don't have 15 guys, they have 9, so they don't have time for like someone to be playing poorly. So you're going to see a lot more movement in college golf. I think this year there was over 1,000 golfers in the portal, all looking to move, teams for whatever reason, and you can move as much as you want for the most part. So how it's going to affect recruiting, from what I've seen, is that schools are taking their time. They're not recruiting quite as quickly. Obviously, the top guys are getting snatched up, but those like second tier players are definitely having to wait a little longer because the schools can't really mess up. They can't take a flyer on a kid. They're really trying to see them develop a little bit more. So, yeah, that you're gonna see it have to play out a little bit longer. So yeah, it's a big change coming.
Yeah. Are they upping from 4.5 scholarships to now 6 or 8? Like, is all 8 can be on a scholarship, or is that increasing?
Yes. So the school has the option to give everyone a scholarship. Doesn't mean they will. I mean, obviously that's a lot of money. If you go to a certain school that's 80 or 100 grand, it's $500,000 a year extra. So, but they do have that option too. Yes.
Have you seen the NIL kind of change in junior golf over the last couple of years? I mean, it's been a huge development, and kind of boots on the ground and working with so many of these top level juniors. Have you seen that kind of effect, or is it? What are you seeing? If this episode is hitting home, please take a second to subscribe and leave a quick review. The more love the podcast gets, the more access we get to the world's top coaches, and that means better insights and better episodes for you. And now, back to the episode.
Yeah, I don't know if I see so much with the NIL as much as what you're seeing in junior golf among the top players is that they're getting opportunities that you just didn't really see as much before. We know names like Blades Brown, and Miles Russell and Charlie Woods and the guy I coach, Luke Colton. It's very, very, these guys are becoming almost like tour players. They have huge followings on social media. Most of them have agents. They have sponsorships from major manufacturers. So that's kind of what you're seeing is like, and that's why Blades basically turned pro, right? I mean, he was ready to play professional golf, and he had a team around him, and he had an agent with him, to where that just wasn't the case 15 or 20 years ago. As far as the NIL, there's a lot of rules around NIL and junior golf. It's more geared towards college golf there, but it's a moving target. I just saw something today that the state of Texas is now allowing like high school seniors to collect NIL money, so it's going to keep moving. Staying on top of it is important. The thing that I've seen with some of the kids, I do see a pattern of some people maybe taking, you could like very small amounts of money, um, like peanuts relative to what they could make as a professional golfer, and like creating relationships they probably don't need to create, or like trying to like make it happen too fast. My advice in junior golf is always like, let it develop. Like this is not a rush. This is not a race. um, you know, being a great junior is great, but that's not the goal. Like if you want to play professional golf, like being good at 18 is not the most important thing in the world. You want to be good when you turn pro. So, I think some of these kids are moving a little bit too fast, with like the agents and things like that. Some of them it's warranted. They're very, very good. They probably need it, but not everyone. Very few people need that. For the most part, you should just be focused on getting better and not like, what am I going to get out of this?
And are you saying that because it's potentially a distraction to their development, or because they're locking themselves into longer term deals that when they do turn pro, they're locked into a certain manufacturer or a certain brand?
It could be that. I'm probably leaning towards the first one. I think it is a distraction. I think it's looking at yourself maybe too much of like not a finished product, but like, your value is going to actually be much, much higher like the longer you go and the more that you prove. So I would say in a lot of cases, I don't know if they've proved it enough to be like all of this stuff is warranted. So again, I would just be patient with a lot of it. If you do have a really, really stud junior, like it's not a rush to hire an agent or to like have these club deals or anything like that. I think Scheffler is like a great picture of that. Like he's just so stuck in his process, and he doesn't really deal with any of that stuff. He's just worried about playing good golf, and he says all the time, like the rest of that stuff will take care of itself. Versus like I've seen some players, it seems like it's a distraction that isn't really, is a 17 or 18-year-old that can be a lot to handle, especially with how social media is now.
So speaking about distractions, how do we how do we instill focus in a junior golfer, especially at a younger age, where there are so many things that could pull you outside of actually the tournament or the course? There's a lot of distractions, but then also, within the actual round itself, how do we dial in focus? I know a lot of parents are curious about this because there is a plethora of distractions right now, and a lot of kids' attention spans are not quite there. How do you do that, and how have you found to kind of foster that skill?
Yeah, so I think I would look at your child as they have like a battery. When they tee off, their battery's at 100%. And I think a lot of parents want their kids to be focused probably a little bit too much throughout the round, like no goofing off, you're too chatty out there, like something like that. And the more that someone's really, really focused, they're by the time the 18 holes is over, they're going to be emotionally and mentally drained. So I think it starts with you really are trying to be focused for a period of time, like before the shot and maybe for a second after the shot. And then you're really just trying to be relaxed. If you listen to PJ Tour players like Rory's got his best friend on the back. He just likes having conversations with him when they're like walking on the golf course. He's not necessarily helping him with golf. So as one, I would hold loosely like having your kid be focused the entire time. But then two, like they need to be developing systems and processes for like how their pre-shot routines, the things they pay attention to, not generically like a pre-shot routine, more like what are the things that you pay attention to make a decision, like yardages and, understanding how to read a yardage book and, judging wind, elevation changes. Those are the kind of things that are important. And then after that, you move on. You just move on, go walk down the fairway. If you're a chatty cat, that's fine. Go chat. If you're pretty focused, like Tiger, don't want to talk to anybody, that's fine too. Um, the other part of the focus is probably more on like emotional regulation, just like not losing it when you're out there or having a lot of expectation. Um, you definitely see that as more of a problem in younger kids, and that is something for whatever reason I found like kind of subsides as they get older without having to have a ton of like help in that area. If your kid is someone that you're like, man, they just really struggle emotionally playing golf, they need to have objective conversations with someone, hopefully a coach. I'm not saying they need to go to a sports psychologist, of just some tangible techniques they can do when like things aren't going their way. Like for example, what would you want to say to your best friend if they were struggling? Would you say, "Oh, you're terrible. You suck. You should quit"? Would you say that to your friend? No, I would say, "Hey, hang in there. You got a lot of golf left. That's just one hole." Like those are the kind of things. And so write those things down. Maybe it would be some breathing techniques. What happens when we're playing better? Our heart rate goes up. How do you slow your heart rate down? You breathe. You learn some breathing strategies. So I think there's some really, really objective things people can do versus like, well, just don't get so mad. Like that doesn't really work with the kids. They need some strategies for dealing with stress.
Yeah, and so do the parents. What
Yeah,
strategies do you have
that's
for the
right.
parents? Do you
Oh,
have any
oh yeah.
suggestions for the
So,
parents?
so
No,
yeah,
like I'm
no,
sure it's
I
like what? Because like you said, like watching your kid play from the sideline is oftentimes more stressful than playing yourself.
yeah.
So what have you found that works, or what advice would you give to the golf parents out there?
Yeah, I made a list of like caddy goals or parent watching goals. I can post it on my social media so everyone can see. But yeah, it was just some things I want to remind myself. I think it's easy in the moment. When you're frustrated, you kind of the same thing. You need to write some things down. Um, Here's what I would tell parents: the next time you go watch your kid, after a couple hours, if you were frustrated, after you calm down, I want you to reflect on that and be like, how do I want to behave the next time I'm there? Like, what are the things I want to say to him? What are the things I want to say to myself? I mean, it's amazing some of the things parents will say about their own children. And then write those things down and don't trust that you can just, behave because you're just going to try harder. And then parents, I had Jackson Coyven on my podcast. He's, number one ranked. Well, now he's number one ranked because Luke Clanton turned pro. And he said, I really wish parents would realize that we're really, really trying hard and we don't want to play bad. And I always took that to heart. Like, man, I know my kid's out there trying and he doesn't have it today. And the last thing he needs is me riding him. Um, I, I think the parents that are generally the hardest are the ones that actually don't play golf. And you're probably slapping your dashboard right now, whoever's listening to this, but they don't really realize how hard it is. I play competitive golf still. Just know that it's really, really hard And the guys on TV make it look easy. Scheffler makes it look very easy, and it's not. And to give them a break, and that doesn't mean you don't ever have tough conversations with them. But those are things that can be done in time, not definitely during the round or right after the round.
So there's going to be some people listening to this right now who they're at that early stage of developing their junior golfer. Maybe they're in that like 5 to 10 years kind of window. What would you do, or what advice would you give them to kind of, foster a little bit of an enjoyment and a curiosity and a love for the game early on? And we've talked about how not to extinguish that, but like how do you kind of baby steps get them engaged in the game early?
Yeah, I would stay away from structure. They don't need to go take a bunch of private lessons for the most part. Doing anything that is going to be fun is going to ignite them. And that doesn't necessarily be golf. That could be, hey, we're going to go play golf and I'm going to take you to get ice cream after. Doing group classes is a lot of fun. I think a lot of people will look at group classes as like, oh, they're not getting that much out of it. Maybe that's true from like an instructional standpoint, but I would argue, who cares? They're 5, 6 years old. The last thing they need is like a bunch of structure. They need to just love to go to golf class. Playing on the golf course is the most fun thing. Driving the golf cart is a very fun thing. Anything where they like, man, that was so cool. I think getting them like cool outfits, like get them shoes, get them a bag, get them clubs, get some US Kids clubs. I think the more that they feel like they're like mom or dad playing, and they're going to really, really enjoy it. Don't worry about performance. I mean, you literally have the rest of your, childhood to worry about their performance. This is where the burnout can happen. Not the burnout. It never ignites is if it's too serious too early. And you guys are leaving and like the kid's crying. That is not where you want to be. No one cares how good your 5-year-old is. No one cares how good your 8 or 9-year-old is. I don't care. No, I mean, no college coach is going to care. So don't worry about it. Having the world's best 9-year-old, who's the best 9-year-old in the world right now? I don't think anybody knows. So don't worry about it. Once they have that interest and that it's time to step it up, you'll know. And that's when you start, okay, he's ready to get serious. Let's hire a coach. Let's find someone that's good at developing juniors. Let's get some tournaments under our belt. But that's going to take some time. That is the one thing that's different with golf because it's so skill oriented. You can't just go play soccer. Everyone can run and kick a ball for the most part pretty quickly. Can't do that in golf. But you can still go on the course and have some fun with dad.
Hmm. What do we need to do from a golf parent's point of view when it comes to that window then where they're starting to take it a little bit more serious? Like, how do we know what a good junior golf coach looks like or is? Like, how do we know if we have the right coach? What should we be looking for?
That's a great question. I get that question a lot. Number one is you need to look for someone who's done it before. And what I mean by that is if your kid is the first one that they've coached, you think, then they probably don't know what to do. Here's what I know about junior parents is once someone does a good job, everyone goes to them. So it's going to be pretty easy to find them. Like right now with my career, it's pretty easy to find, the 5 or 10 guys in North Texas who are doing a good job because everybody goes to them because they do a good job. Look for people who've done it over a period of time. Secondly, I really would avoid people who sit on the driving range. I'm not saying that, sitting on the driving range and, taking lessons is bad. That's fine. That's good. If you are only doing full swing every single lesson, then my question would be, how are you going to develop those other skills? Who is going to be teaching them? And you can be like, well, they'll develop, putting's not that hard. And, they can chip, they chip with a pitching wedge or something like that. So just have really like sensitive ears to and eyes to what this person's doing. Most of the time, what I see is the parents aren't really involved in the process. I'm not saying they need to go to the lessons, but I would definitely be checking in. If it appears that someone's not trying really hard, like to make your kid good, then they're probably not trying very hard. And that's why they don't have a lot of kids. So look for someone who's doing it. Look for someone who does a lot of skills, and someone that you can see pretty often. Taking a lesson like once a month is okay, but it's not as good as probably taking one every 1 or 2 weeks. Whenever someone starts taking lessons once a month, what happens is you only do full swing because you have to check in on how someone's hitting it. But if you really want to get into like the softer side of lessons and doing, chipping out of the rough or green reading skills or speed control, then you're going to have to see someone more.
So speaking from a coach's point of view now, and even coaching your own son, what would a typical week look like then as you're developing them? Let's just say sometime between like 10 and 15 years old. Like, what's a developmental week look like?
Yeah, I'd say at least down here in Texas, again, this is a pretty competitive place and the weather's good enough you can do it all day. Most kids are practicing, 5 to 7 days a week. Um, they're probably playing 60 to 70% of the time. And the other time is spent kind of correcting errors. So, if you go play and you're not driving it well, you're probably going and fixing that. Most kids are probably taking a lesson once a week. They might be doing some sort of group training as well, like a 2-hour group training session on short game or putting. And then they're really prioritizing their skill development. So most kids have some type of like blueprint for their full swing, like what should look like. A lot of kids have technology, maybe a launch monitor. They're checking that. And then they're running through their kind of, we'll call it like tests. They have tests in like distance wedges, short game, putting, with drills that have scores. I mean, you have to be doing some drills to kind of measure how you're doing. And so they're kind of running through those things. The purpose of doing those things is to enhance your skills. You're not going to necessarily get better just by playing golf. You got to prioritize, like, especially if you're bad at certain things. Like, let's say you're not good at speed control. Well, you just going and playing golf is not going to make you good at speed control. You have to kind of understand what my putting stroke should look like, and then what drills do I do on like a fairly regular basis. So yeah, most kids are probably practicing in the 25 to 30 hours a week in the summer. And then by the way, they might be playing an event instead of, playing on the course. It might be at a tournament.
So including tournament play, you're looking at about 25 to 30 hours, including tournaments, or
if it was a tournament
as
week, it's probably
practice?
more. Yeah, it's probably more. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Listen, Andrew, wealth of information here. If
Sorry,
someone's
maybe I said too much.
Not at all. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm frantically taking notes. I can hear the audience doing the same thing as well. If someone's in North Texas right now and they want to kind of come into your ecosystem, they want to either meet with you to actually help you, or have you help their junior, or just to kind of reach out, what's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, the best way is through my social media. I've spent a lot of time in the last year on my YouTube channel. It's Andrew Lewis Golf. All my stuff is Andrew Lewis Golf on Instagram, TikTok. I would also say I do a lot of remote coaching. I see a lot of people from not in Texas, people that just want some help. They can't get here. I have a platform I use that's really, really good for development. Kids I haven't even met in person that I've helped. So if you're someone who would like to just have, an assessment of your skills, of your golf swing, of your putting, of your short game, tournament scheduling, things like that, definitely reach out, because the thing is the junior golf world is very, very wide. Everyone's doing a little bit differently, and everyone needs some guidance because it can be kind of overwhelming. So definitely, if you don't have a coach, you need to find someone that can help you. And so reach out to me for sure on one of those platforms. Probably Instagram's the best one.
Awesome. You've got, Andrew, the eyes and the ears of golf parents everywhere. What would be a piece of advice or any like kind of lasting kind of comments or just thoughts that you might want to leave with them?
That junior golf is a long process. You're talking from like my son, age 9 to age 18 before it's realized. And then, oh, by the way, he's going to go to college. And so I think I always am saying, like, be patient. Be patient with the process, but you need to develop a very clear and concise process of how you do things, the type of tournament you schedule, your coach. Like, develop those processes more than like focusing on the results, and be patient with the results, like, and believe in the things you're doing. Being blown by the wind and changing coaches and changing clubs and blaming the wrong things is where people mainly go wrong. So find a team around you that includes, like a strength coach. Those are very important things. Develop a good team, be patient with the results, and trust your process. And if you have a hard time doing that, again, reach out and I can help you find that process.
So well said. Andrew, thank you so much for this. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
Thanks for tuning in. As a fellow golf parent, I know how much this journey matters. If this podcast helped you even 1%, please consider following and reviewing it. It's the #1 way to grow the community and keep bringing you elite insights week after week. And while you're here, check out the show description for exclusive discounts from our sponsors, handpicked to help your junior golfer train smarter and play better.